this is your girl Megan from the HoodAstroQ. Welcome back to my channel, cousins. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, welcome. It is here that we use information from celestial bodies to help us gain a better understanding of our favorite celebrities, world events, but most importantly, our damn selves. So do us both a solid. Hit that subscribe button to become a part of the family. Thumbs up this video to help grow the channel and click that notification bell so that way you will be alerted whenever I make a new post. All right. And today we are here to do a follow-up to my previous video. Okay, because I stand corrected. Now, the DeBarge family member who most recently made the news for getting arrested for drug possession was in fact Chico DeBarge. Y'all know it's about 11,000 of them DeBarge brothers and sisters. Okay, well, it's one sister, but it's about 11 of them brothers. So I lose track. However, it's still very interesting to see how similar Chico and even El DeBarge's natal charts are in terms of just a lot of the overlapping traumas and even certain sign placements or certain, energies, natal alignments that they have within their charts, which also makes sense considering that they were raised in the same abusive household. So maybe I'll just make a series out of this and just complete a natal chart reading for each member of the family to kind of be a little bit more thorough. Okay, and really get down into the nooks and crannies of what the fuck is going on with this family. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on Mr. Chico DeBarge, because it's sad. Now, Chico DeBarge was born on June 23rd, 1966 in Detroit, Michigan. This will place his son at the first degree of Cancer. And right away, this is a red flag because a lot of Cancer prominent individuals, these are people where all it takes is one affliction, one negative aspect, and it can really screw up the way a person relates to their family, especially if we're talking about men. Their experience with family and things like that could really jade them if they have some really dysfunctional situations going on. So these are people who can ultimately grow up to have all kinds of behavioral or even personality afflictions and disorders as a result of experiencing traumatic childhoods. And obviously we already kind of know the story for the most part. So you also have to consider the fact that his son is also squaring his Saturn, which is at the 29th degree of Pisces, y'all. And this is catastrophic in terms of just the impact that this has on his life, as it can produce a person who obviously comes from a severely dysfunctional family, particularly as it pertains to like the relationship with the father could have been grossly dysfunctional. These are people who have such a difficult time processing a lot of the memories and things attached to their childhood and their early formative years, to the point where it's just easy for them to try to medicate away the memories. They can have a lot of difficulty processing their emotions and are in a constant state of conflict or inner turmoil. These are people who could have suffered lots of abuse, lots of exploitation, especially when we're talking about the exploitation of boundaries. That number 29 could also even deal with incest. So even when it comes to, because I saw a lot of people in the comment section of my last video saying that the father had, what to the children. And although that was a vibe that I did get from El DeBarge's natal alignments, I didn't necessarily want to come out and say that. But since y'all said it, not me, you know what I'm saying? This aspect could absolutely corroborate that even in Chico DeBarge's chart as well, where he could have had a father that wounded his manhood. Okay. And I don't know if the father used to do stuff like tie them up or hold them against their will or, do those weird type of corporal punishments. But this could also deal with where, victimization could have been rampant, where the dad could have been an addict himself. And just a person who just in general is going to experience a lot of issues when it comes to, drugs. Like, these are people who can have grossly addictive personalities and could just have a difficult time dealing with reality, coping with reality. And this is also reinforced with him being a Virgo moon. All right. So I mean, you have to imagine that these are people who could live their lives, in a tremendous amount of, anxiety. These are people who could have a horrible time when it comes to like learning how to manage stress. You could almost even think of this as, because especially when people undergo high amounts of stress and trauma, they tend to disassociate. You could absolutely look at that Saturn at the 29th degree of Pisces squaring his sun as him having this kind of disassociative state or maybe even disorder. I'm not a doctor, but astrologically speaking, this could absolutely be a byproduct of that. Okay. And as a Virgo moon, once again, I mean, Virgo, I always say Virgo moon is one of the most challenging moon placements to have because these are people who are very seldomly at peace. And this is also reinforced by the fact that his moon is narrowly, it's almost conjunct Pluto, but I mean, the effects are still the same. Either way, it will create a person that could just have a difficult time really keeping their minds quiet. And if that wasn't bad enough, his Saturn is conjunct his Chiron and Pisces, which could ultimately just create this theme very similar to his brother El DeBarge, where they have a very strong karmic connection. There's a lot of karma tied to these individuals and addiction, right? Where it's almost like a stronghold, a vice grip that really controls them. And it can be incredibly, incredibly, incredibly difficult to escape. His karma also requires that he be put in situations of sacrifice. These are people who can experience a lot of loss, a lot of tragedy at the behest of their own families. Of course, even the father with that son influence, even the mother, but just family in general, but also the children. And I thought that was particularly interesting considering that when I was reading up, on Chico, I discovered that he had a son who actually was killed. His son was murdered last year. He had a son who was stabbed to death. And you could look at this aspect as part of his karma, almost like his son was a sacrifice, not in like the Illuminati. He was, in the back room with smoke and cigars and he offered his son for a contract. Not necessarily that, but from a karmic standpoint where his son dying was yet another monumental milestone that solidified and further cemented that karmic debt where he has to pay back that karmic debt in this lifetime. And ultimately, the larger lesson for these people here, especially when we're talking about Saturn and Pisces, and then conjunctus Chiron, is that he needs to learn how to develop a certain level of spirituality in this lifetime. He's supposed to be a very spiritual being. And, because Saturn often breaks us down before it helps us up or before it forces us to help ourselves up, a lot of times these are people who can be brought to their knees when it comes to, just unfortunate circumstance. It's like loss could follow them at every turn. And once again, with this squaring the sun, a lot of times this loss and this sacrifice could absolutely involve the father. It can involve the son. And in his case, his family in general. Okay. So I thought that was very, very profound. However, instead of, embracing this and really immersing himself into spirituality, which is the higher vibration of, this Chiron and Saturn and Pisces, most people exude the lower vibration. And in his case, this would be turning to drugs, turning to alcohol. You could even look at this conjunction between Saturn and Chiron and Pisces as even like him doing synthetic drugs. And I thought that was funny because when I, sure enough, looked up what he actually got arrested for, they said the man had meth on him. And I'm like, who the fuck smokes meth? And meth is like you do drugs. Like you do drugs. Like there are drugs, but then there are drugs. If somebody does meth, they're doing drugs because it is an artificial drug, a man-made drug that actually will kill you and deteriorate the body a lot quicker than almost anything else you can do. I mean, of course, there's heroin, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a drug connoisseur. All I know is Okay, and when you look at his face, he looks like somebody who does meth. Meth, there is no attractive meth user. Meth has a lot of wear and tear on the body. So I just thought that was very interesting as well. Okay, that Chiron and Saturn conjunction in Pisces a lot of times does lead to synthetic drug use. But he could also have an affinity for prescription medication, especially with him having that Virgo moon. He could enjoy his alcohol, all kinds of stuff. So, these are people who have it bad. And they could also have a lot of karma steeped in honesty. These are people who, very similar to when Saturn is in Capricorn, can experience their karma turnaround time really quickly. So it is very important for these people to be conscientious about the decisions that they make in their lives. These are people who are also very prone to lying, stealing, cheating, and very similar to his brother, El DeBarge, like especially with this sun squaring his Saturn and Chiron and Pisces, he is also one of those addicts who will lie, who will steal, especially if they get desperate. So you got to be really careful, okay? Then he even has his Mars at that 17th degree of Gemini, forming a quincunx to his Neptune at the 19th degree of Scorpio, which is quite literally the aspect that led to him giving his brother's name during the arrest. Now, it just so happens that El DeBarge also has very similar placements. El DeBarge is actually a Gemini sun. And because of that, okay, it also made my antennas go up with Chico DeBarge's Mars at the 17th degree of Gemini. I'm wondering if there is some sibling rivalry there. And I do get that a lot. Maybe it wasn't easy working with his siblings. Maybe there could have been something there between, his siblings, some grudges held, some resentment there. But nonetheless, that Mars forming a quincunx, you could look at the quincunx as situations where a person kind of has to learn how to, wheel and deal their way out of maybe like a sticky situation, getting themselves caught up in something where you kind of have to wheel and deal or, make certain adjustments and kind of work your way out of what's going on, right? And so with that Mars and Gemini, Mars literally deals with the name. Gemini deals with your siblings, forming a quincunx to that Neptune and Scorpio, where you could look at that as him stealing his brother's name, you know what I mean? Or committing criminal acts under his brother's name. So I thought that was very interesting. But he could also be very similar to El DeBarge. I wonder when they were younger if they used to do stuff like pick the locks on people's cars and steal cars. I don't know why I get car theft from them. They give me car theft vibes. Then he's also a Scorpio South Node. He has his South Node at the 23rd degree, which could also produce a very criminally minded individual, a person who can be a deviant, a menace to society. But it can also produce a person who has undergone a tremendous amount of psychological turmoil, trauma, abuse. So you see these themes kind of just appearing over and over and over again. And like I said, there are a lot of parallels to his brother L's chart. And it's just sad, honestly. It's really sad. A lot of Scorpio South Nodes do have a difficult time. They come from many past life cycles where these people could have been abusers or abused themselves. So automatically, a lot of times in this particular life, they undergo many circumstances where they're faced with that, where they have to kind of rise above those things and learn how to build up their self-esteem. Okay, a lot of times they have really compromised levels of self-esteem for obvious reasons. These are also people who have to learn how to, just raise their standards and raise the bar in all other areas of their lives so they can be socially acceptable people, which is another reason why, especially if you have like the really, really dark-sided ones, they can be criminally minded or, just people who are always doing something, always getting into something. They can also be hypersexual. That's also reinforced with his Venus at the 26th degree of Taurus, conjunct his North Node. He could also be in a lot of debt, or be in a position where he's taking care of a lot of people. He owes a lot of people money. These are people who may have to file bankruptcy at some point in life, or people who could owe a whole lot of child support or something like that. Now, also, his sun squaring that Saturn and Chiron and Pisces could make or break him. That's also another aspect that could put him on the fast track for imprisonment, running into the authorities. These are people who can spend very long stints of time in jail, which is another reason why I say, for these type of individuals, if they are doing things that they are not supposed to be doing, it's very easy for them to get caught up. Their karma comes right back. And a lot of times these people wind up in jail. So having this aspect in tandem with that Scorpio South Node is just a big ass setup. Because right off rip, as a Scorpio South Node, you are tempted to do wrong. You could be tempted to do things you ain't got no business doing. Even with that Gemini Mars, quincunx Neptune, right? They could also be kind of deviant minded. And then with that sun squaring Chiron and Saturn, especially at the 29th degree of Pisces, I mean, that's literally like a jailbird all day. Literally a jailbird all day. Or a person who gets so bad, like their condition when it comes to addiction and things like that, deteriorates so bad that they have to be, submitted, or they have to go to like an institution or rehab. These people may spend very long periods of time there. He also may have undergone some abuse, whether it be sexual, but I also get it could be verbal. I feel like he's undergone a lot of verbal abuse as well, especially with that Virgo moon. But then even with his Mars squaring Pluto, and also just like his brother, he has a lot of different indicators of him being sexually fluid. You got to look at even that Mars squaring Pluto there. But even his Mars is squaring Uranus, which could, it's one of the telltale signs of, being on that spectrum in astrology, especially for men, especially with that Gemini Mars. Gemini Mars individuals, of course, not all men with Gemini Mars, but a lot of them are just naturally predisposed towards that flexible kind of mode of sexuality, that dual mode of operating when it comes to their sexual identity. So squaring Uranus, I mean, they could be very, very fluid, very fluid. Then considering that his Mars is also quincunxing that Neptune and Scorpio, you could even look at that as them wearing makeup. You could also look at his sun squaring that Saturn and Chiron and Pisces as him wearing makeup, especially as a Cancer. That's why they look so effeminate. I was never turned on by the DeBarges. I mean, they were before my time, but even just looking back, I can't really get jiggy with it because, I mean, they had so much makeup on here. They look like chicks, especially Chico. And that is because he is not only just a Cancer sun, but he does have that affliction to Chiron and Saturn and Pisces, and then his Mars, right? That Mars forming a quincunx to Neptune. I wouldn't be surprised if he liked to dress up like a woman, like full stop, like on some, I'm wearing my wife's panties, like type of thing. But that's just speculative on my part. But he has a lot of very effeminate and very fluid kind of natal alignments. But that ain't none of my business. Ain't none of my business. Even with that Mars squaring Uranus, you could look at this as him being unpredictable, him having a very short temper. So I'm pretty sure he's a hothead, right? These are people who could also find it really hard to maybe even keep jobs or commitments for very long periods of time. And then finally, I took a look at his asteroid Psyche. Psyche is an asteroid that basically points towards wounds that one could sustain early in life that never heal. And they could absolutely wreak havoc on your adult life. So his asteroid Psyche is at the 19th degree of Cancer. Surprise, surprise. So once again, we're dealing with family wounds. And it is forming a quincunx to that Gemini Mars. So once again, echoing that Gemini Mars squaring Pluto in the terms of him sustaining a lot of deep psychological family wounds, abuse at the hands of siblings. And like I said, it could have very well have been verbal as well. Cancer doesn't forget. And that's something that is very important to keep in mind. For a lot of these people, memories can remain trapped in time. This could also deal with him having issues with his own racial identity. So maybe back in school, like grade school or grades K through 12, he had to like defend himself or learn how to navigate amongst multiple cultures and environments. And this is particularly interesting considering that the DeBarges are biracial. So their father was a white man and their mother is a black woman. Which, if you ask me, the mother could have been very complicit in all of this that's going on, or at least in all of the abuse that was going on, especially considering the fact that he has that sun squaring Saturn and Chiron, right? This could deal with where maybe even he had a mother who was maybe either negligent or maybe she just was really passive. Maybe she was a victim herself, so on so many different levels. Obviously, their parents failed them in some of the most disgusting of ways. And yeah, I mean, a lot of that is a part of their karma. And I hate to say it, but a lot of times, most times, all the time, we are born here. Our spirits sign a contract and we agree to be here under certain terms and conditions that we need in order to relearn who we are. And some people end up correcting course and are able to do that, and others aren't. Some people have an easier time being able to do that, others don't. And it's safe to say that Chico and even El DeBarge are two examples of the people who don't. Obviously, free will is a factor. They do have other like positive aspects that I didn't go over just because I'm specifically talking about this incident and the trauma within their family. But, I mean, how old are they now? Like, if it hasn't been done, it's probably won't be done. So, it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And once again, it's just another situation that I definitely empathize with. And I don't know. I wouldn't wish it on nobody. This shit is sad, bro. So y'all drop down in the comment section. Let me know what y'all thought about Chico DeBarge's natal alignments. And make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until the next video, I holla.